Cain and his legacy. We're looking at the book of Genesis this quarter, and it's a very important subject as it's about origins. Where are we coming from? What brought us where we currently are? This understanding is crucial for how we approach life. We looked at the creation, then the fall, and this week, the question is what now? Humanity made a choice, we had to leave God's presence. The consequences were dire. But God made a promise to not leave us and to prepare a path out. So it wasn't an end, but a beginning of a new journey of healing and restoration. For the healing to begin, to stop something that broke to completely fall apart, there is a process, and what started with a decision in Eden had to be left to develop. And this development is basically the history of humanity as we know it. The main parts of the lesson are Cain and Abel and the two offerings, the crime and the punishment of Cain, and the wickedness of man. This looks at some implications and consequences. After the fall, we see a list of birth and death. This is the sequence, this is the result, this is our journey. But right there, at the beginning, there is something very important that happened and it has determining consequences. The first human beings born by Adam and Eve present few main directions, few different approaches about life. Cain, Abel, and Seth. Cain was the firstborn. I can't imagine the experience of Adam and Eve with the first ever childbirth, experiencing the creation of life. Incredible! And Eve thought that this baby, this miracle, certainly should be the deliverer, the solution of the problem. And Cain grew up as a tough man. He worked the hard soil and was a successful farmer. He was strong and successful. The second child, Abel, seems to have been just a background. He took care of the sheep and wasn't anything significant. His name even comes from a word that, as used in Ecclesiastics as well, just means vanity. The early human setup shows how the values of humanity shaped after disconnecting from God. Self-reliance as a virtue and compassion, care as vanity. One was seen as strength, the other as weakness. Cain came to God with the fruits of his hands, his merits. He decided not to comply to God's demand and offered his own version. His mind couldn't process why someone else needed to sacrifice for him. He thought that he can take care of things on his own. Abel complied. He offered what God asked for, symbolizing the need and acceptance of a sacrifice for his own insufficiency. And then an offering of thanksgiving from the fruits of his hands. Two different understandings of life. Cain got angry that God didn't accept his offering. He didn't agree, it was injustice. He was also jealous and he took things into his hands, murdering his brother. And he didn't see it as something wrong. How do you deal with this? Can it be fixed or should it be immediately destroyed? Sin seems to be too powerful and too damaging. God chose to engage in the process of giving a chance and leading the process of healing. It's a long one. He started with questions to Cain, helping him to start processing, helping him to understand that sin is hunting for him and that it wants to consume him. But if he accepts God's terms, not his own, Cain can rule over it. He has a path of forgiveness and redemption. There are also, however, consequences. There are consequences for the ground that took Abel's blood and consequences for Cain to be a refugee far from God. But even there and then, there is a promise, a path, and hope. The story of these two brothers is well known, but do we really understand the implications? Things will continue unfolding and developing. In Cain's family and his descendants, we can find Lamech, someone who has no remorse and even brag about his sin. He introduces polygamy as well. On another side, Adam and Eve, after losing Abel, got another son, Seth, starting another genealogy that includes Enoch, Methuselah, Noah. One of them never died, another lived the longest on earth, and through one of them, humanity was saved for another chance after the flood. Do we understand the legacy of Cain? Hashtag lesson in one. Couple weeks ago, we started this new segment, hashtag lesson in one. The idea is not to summarize everything from the lesson, but to share in one sentence or so, one tweet length, what you will take from this week's study. Please check at ShorePoints on Twitter and subscribe for notifications. You can also search for hashtag lesson in one and join the conversation this way. It's still just a monologue, but let's build it up. So, here it is, my version. After the fall, sin took its course of development. The disconnect from God enforced man's self-reliance and took humanity on a disastrous path. Restoration was also initiated through the acceptance of a substitute sacrifice and thanksgiving offering. Next week, we move to the flood.